it's 2:30 Geneva time, and we'd like to welcome everybody who's joining us for today's session on how can digital government deliver development impact. So we hope you like the alliteration. We've got a stellar panel with us today, working in all aspects of digital government, both at the national level, at the field level, and also at the international level. So we're going to hear a number of important and interesting perspectives. It's also a very exciting time for digital government. There's been quite a few records in the last couple of years. We'll be hearing about that. We've seen a huge shift in administrations driven by COVID to moving government online. So there's a lot to be said about what's been happening over the last 2 years. And it's an area in full growth, and there's a lot of changes going on. So it'll be good to hear about those too. So I'm just going to introduce the panel, and we'll be hearing from the panelists one by one. So we have Frank Rosell, who is heading the digital government program at UNCTAD. So he'll be talking about the work that UNCTAD is doing in this area, and the theories behind it and the different products that they have and how they work. Then we'll be hearing from Tandin Shering, who's from Bhutan. Bhutan is now the fastest place in the world to register a cottage industry or a small business. And it can be done, I believe, in under a minute, and depending on your internet speed, within seconds. Then we're hearing from Jane Musyoki from Kenya, who's been using digital government applications to make life easier for importers and exporters and traders, cutting costs, cutting time, and making it much more affordable, especially for small entrepreneurs. Then we hear from Eric Akute, who is in Benin. Benin became the fastest place in the world to register normal-sized business, including registration with Social Security and with tax authorities, and they beat Estonia and New Zealand to that position, and that was about a year ago. So they have a lot to say, including the large number of new companies that have been registering in the country since they got that record. Then we're hearing from David Roos. David Roos is from the Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, which is GIZ, which is the German International Cooperation Agency. So he'll be talking about all the work that GIZ is doing in the field in this area and how they see this area evolving. Then we'll be hearing from Jonathan Ortmans, who is from the Global Entrepreneur Network. So they bring entrepreneurs together from around the world. The goal of GEN is to make it easy for entrepreneurs anywhere to be able to start and scale up a business. So obviously, there's a lot of common goals here. And then we'll be hearing from Alex Mejia. Alex Mejia is from the United Nations Institute on Training and Research, and they're going to start a program together with UNCTAD to do a lot of capacity building in this area to really spread the digital government out to as many countries as possible. So just a couple of logistics points. We'll be starting with each panelist who will be doing a presentation, and then we'll be doing questions and answers. Now we have two platforms from which you may have joined. We have the World Investment Forum platform. You have question and answer there. You come directly to Zoom. You also have question and answer there. Put your questions in either of them. Whichever you do, it will come to us. Also, if you have a streaming issue through the World Investment Forum platform, you can refresh or use the Zoom link, which will have been put up as well. So with that, I'm going to pass the floor first to Frank. Frank, you have the floor.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for some of us. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I would like to share with you a few lessons drawn from UNCTAD experience in more than 50 countries where UNCTAD has been helping public agencies to implement digital tools. And I'd like to share with you three main ideas that could be useful to government agencies which would like to implement good online services. The first idea is that it is not about IT, it's about service. The objective is not to develop an IT system. The objective is to make businesses and citizens' lives easier. This is different, and this has two important implications. The first one is that creating an online service is not an IT project. IT is just a component, and it shouldn't be the exclusive focus. The second is that the project is about designing simple, user-friendly services. This is a very important point to keep in mind at all times. The second idea is that you need to simplify first. You cannot automate a complex procedure because it will not make it easier. You must simplify first. And the best way to simplify is to start by clarifying the procedure. You need to know first the procedure you want to automate. And the best way to clarify a procedure is to describe it step by step from the user's point of view. Then it becomes easy to simplify. Simplifying is just removing steps and removing requirements in each step. And then once you have simplified, it becomes easy to automate. That's the second idea, simplify first. The third idea is that simplifying is a way of thinking. Barriers are not legal, barriers are not technical, they are mental. So they're not legal barriers. I don't say that they're not existent, but the law doesn't prevent you from simplifying. And what you want to simplify is not the law. What you want to simplify is the procedure in application of the law. And the procedure depends on you. It depends on you to simplify the procedure. Barrier is not technical. Technology is available. It is less and less expensive. The main barrier you're going to face, and I'm sure that many of the speakers are going to talk about this today, is resistance to change. And the change consists in moving from a control mentality to a service mentality. To help those of you who want to overcome these barriers, UNCTAD has developed tools you can use to create easily quality online services. And the guiding principles behind these tools is that they should make the IT part very, very easy so that you can concentrate on what is really important, simplifying and building user-friendly processes. And this is why the tools I'm going to briefly show you now do not require any programming. They can be configured as a Facebook page. They're called no-code development tools. This is an information portal which has been set up by the government of Montenegro. Here you can see a few procedures. If you click on this one, craft businesses, you want to register as a craft business. Then you can see a list of steps you have to go through. You have to go through 13 steps. And then you see a summary of the procedures you have to go through. And you see that this procedure of 13 steps, it involves 8 different institutions. The results, you see 3 different pieces of paper, which are the results of this procedure. You see all the documents you have to give yourself, forms and other documents, 37. You see the estimated cost all along this procedure, the total duration, the time you have to wait in queue, the attention, the time you have to spend at the counter, and the time you have to wait until 2 steps. You see the laws which justify this procedure. This is just the summary. If you click on any of the steps, let's click on step 11, register with municipality, then you're told where you have to go. You have to go to this building, to this office, to see this lady who's in charge of the office. You see the expected result, what the lady is going to give you. You see what are the requirements, what you have to give yourself, how much you have to wait in queue, how much time you have to stay at the counter, what are the laws, regulations which justify this step, and who you can complain to in case you have a problem. You can go and see this lady. If you click on any other step, that's the same way to present. So this is an example of a good information portal set up without any programming by the government of Montenegro to help investors, national businesses and international businesses understand, in this case, how you can register a business in this country. And you can document in these portals any type of process. These are the countries where this tool, information portal, has been implemented with this UNCTAD tool called e-regulations. The government of Iraq followed the same way. They started documenting procedures. And you see, they document many procedures, tax-related procedures, and also they documented the procedure to register a business. They found out that it would take 35 steps for somebody who wanted to create a company in Baghdad to create this company. It involved several institutions. To these institutions, you had to go 16 times. And that's the result. One document, you have to give yourself 47 documents as a user. And on the basis of this work they had done, which was primarily to give an information to the users, they realized that they could simplify. Because once you have clarified the procedure, then it becomes much easier to simplify. Simplifying is going to each step, opening the step, opening the law which justify the step, and seeing if you can remove some requirements, or you can even remove the step. So this is what the government of Iraq did in the context of a project with an assistance from the Global Entrepreneurship Network and UNCTAD, and they went from 35 to 14 steps. So that's the actual situation. But they used then another tool developed by UNCTAD to go beyond this, not only showing what are manual procedures, but making this procedure transactional online. So they used another tool called e-regulations, and they used it to develop this tool, which is now called an online single window. It's the same process you've seen, which went from 35 steps to 14, and now it's only one step online. You go there, and you can apply online. You can fill a guide where they're going to ask you who you are, and according to this, do you answer? They're going to tell you what are the fees, what are the documents you need to upload. Then you fill the form, which is a single form, which will be sent to all the institutions which participate in this single window. You fill your documents, you pay online, you can send this, and then your file is seen by various institutions in what we call back office. So here I'm connected as somebody from the Chamber of Commerce. I'm receiving the file. I'm seeing the documents which have been uploaded by the user. I'm seeing the data which have been sent in the form. And my processing is just to put a number, a date. I generate a certificate. I can, and this certificate will be sent by mail to the user. This is the second tool I wanted to show you. So the first one is a simple tool to create, as we saw here, information portals, which give information to the public on how to go about procedures. And the second one to automate these procedures, simple or complex procedures, which we call single windows. This is what I wanted to show you today. These tools, the two tools I mentioned to you, are part of this, what we call the UNCTAD digital government platform, which is being implemented in several countries in the world and which are available to government agencies who want to produce, to develop quality online services for the benefit of businesses and citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Perhaps you just.
Yeah, I think what I'm showing now is the UNCTAD digital platform. You can go there if you want to find more information. The address is businessfacilitation.org. You're going to see here information about what I mentioned to you, online single windows with this tool, which we call e-registrations, the step-by-step information portals like those of Montenegro and Iraq. And I'm sure you're going to see probably more in Kenya and maybe Bhutan today and Benin. And then the way you can use these tools to develop online fiscal services, security, online services. There's a very interesting feature called digital residency for foreign investors. So all this is part of these very simple tools which compose the UNCTAD digital government platform. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you for showing us the different tools. And that's great to see. And I think that provides a good overview going forward. Just quick message for everyone who's following us online, not through Zoom, but through the World Investment Forum platform. If you're hearing us but you can't see the image, just press refresh and click on the screen, and you should get the picture as well. So next we move to Tandem Charing, who is Director General of Economic Affairs in Bhutan. And Bhutan, as I mentioned, recently implemented a new online cottage industry registration system as part of their broader government, digital government strategy. So Tandem, you have the floor.
Good evening from Bhutan. Before, I would like to thank UNCTAD for having me as one of the panelists to talk on the Bhutan's experience on the digital strategy. We would rather say an e-governance strategy has been adopted by the government. You may or may not be aware that the development philosophy that Bhutan has is the gross national happiness. These are supported by the 4 pillars of the sustainable socio-economic development. The second being the promotion and the preservation of culture heritage. Third being environment conservation, and the final being the good governance. Now, what while all the digitalization has an important bearing on all the 4 pillars, but in the interest of time, I'll simply focus on the governance part, how the digitalizations has really impacted onto the governance, because the ICT visa government, because the Bhutan, as you know, that we are really a latecomer in the ICT, and internet came quite late in Bhutan, but nevertheless, I think the pace that we have taken was so much ambitious that we really want to leapfrog because of the geographical conditions that we are facing, because the Bhutan is marked by all these hostile mountainous country, and we see that digitalization is the best solutions that we have in our arsenal. So government has embarked on the very ambitious that e-governance roadmap in 2014. And now during the current 5-year plan, the government has embarked on the digital flagships. In that particularly most of the government service are being provided through the integrated citizen services, such as the government to citizen and government to business community systems. These are being implemented. Basically, these are mainly to provide public service such as births registration, death registration, pensions, marriage, and so on and so forth. Now, including even the business licensing services are being provided through. Now, with with the development of fintech, now the financial transactions has become much more convenient, simple, efficient, even the cost effective, because it saves people from having to go to the banks. It saves the time and it also saves the resources. And also, particularly in the Buddhist context, that it saves to a large extent the traffic jams, thus saving the environment. So these are the various digitalization. Of course, I'm just giving the context of how the digitalization has really seeped into the governance part in Bhutan. Coming to the real digitalization that has been impacted by the particularly the Minister of Economic Affairs. I think the Ian has already mentioned about the registration part of the businesses licensing. Earlier, that in Bhutan, mainly the cottage and small industries, we in other countries called CSMI, but in Bhutan we call it cottage and small industries. And the cottage is mainly the major chunk. More than 80% of the cottage and small industries comprises of the cottage part. So the only best solution, because if we can take care of that cottage scale business category, then I think the major chunk can be taken care. Because so in view of that one, that we have embarked on the registration system through the untaxed support, and I think we launched this program in 2020 May, and it has been running so far very successfully. And on behalf of the government, I would like to thank the UNTAC for the kind support, that because I think, as Ian has already made, that we are one of the fastest countries in the world to have these registration services. For the why it's very important for Bhutan, because see, earlier people needs to come personally to either to the office, our regional office, to obtain business licenses. Now, through this online system, this registration, if you have a smart mobile phone, you can do it from the comfort of your home or at your own convenience, wherever you are. It's within few minutes, you will have your registrations done, and you can start your business anywhere you want to do it. And most important thing is that these registration systems, registration is valid for 3 years. Earlier times, it has to be renewed on an annual basis, and there are fees that are applied for the registration. Now the fees have been waived. So I think it has made much more convenient for the startups and the young entrepreneurs to do easy whenever they feel like. They can simply punch in the computer, within no time they can have their permit to start a business. Because why we have started, as I mentioned about, is that because there were so many challenges because of the regulatory and administrative burden prior to establishing a business, which discourages our startups and aspiring entrepreneurs in venturing businesses. Why? Because the people needs to go for a sectoral clearance from various agencies, which are mandated by the laws and bylaws and other requirements that we have to fulfill. Now with the registration systems that we have done, we're having to go to all other agencies. Of course, when it comes to that polluting, which has safety issues, then that needs to obtain the clearance from the respective industries. So I think my time is over, I guess. Maybe I have a few seconds, but what I'm saying is that with the adoption of the registration system here in Bhutan, people need to travel. They don't need to travel, which take days to come to our office to obtain a business licensing. Now they can do it from there and they don't have to pay anything. And it reduces the turnaround times so that they can start their business much more easier. What is more important is that when these administrative burdens or regulatory burdens are reduced, then it eases or it facilitates easy establishments of business by all our promoters. So what we are expecting is that with the online system, it is much more easier for the people to start their business. That ultimately would encourage more startups and entrepreneurs to take up their business. They can even do on a trial phases or do it, and if it is succeed, it succeeds, and if they can easily, the easy entry and easy exit is a very important the elements that we see, because these have been a determinants for our startups till now. And now with this cottage and small industries registration, to a large extent, that it has really helped our people, both in terms of time, resources, cost, and it also eases the burden on the administrative machineries in the government. Now, with the success of this cottage and small cottage registration system, now again through the integrated business licensing system, which is under development, I think the UNTAC is also involved in that effort. Now we want to move this into the small, medium, and large scale industries from now. Now, even when we have for this one, then it saves the cost, as I said, similar to that of the cottage registration system. People need not have to run from the post to pillar from one agency to another agency to seek clearance, because simply people can just punch it in the, or just enter into the online system, punch it all the necessary information there, then it will go to all the relevant agency, and the back end, the relevant agency will provide whatever sector clearance that are required to be provided. But here what we are going to put is that time frame, if silence is concerned, sort of this time of conditions that we are going to put when we really pick up this integrated business licensing system. So if we have this system in 1 or 2 years from now, I think to a large extent that, as already mentioned, that we may be one of the fastest country to do business here in Bhutan. So I'll leave it here. My time is over, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tandon, and thank you also for that very interesting perspective on what's happening in Bhutan, and also for staying up late for us too. Now we move to Jane Musyoki, who is in Kenya and works for the Kenyan Trade Agency, and she'll be talking about the work she's been doing using digital government tools to make it easier to import and export. Jane, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ian, and thank you also for this opportunity to showcase, or rather to showcase what Kenya is doing in reference to simplifying trade, more so to our traders through the Kenya Information for Trade portal. Without repeating much from the previous speakers, I think I'll just go straight to the story of simplification, and of course, the impact it has created in the business environment. We all agree that trade facilitation measures, of course, entails reforms and modernization of processes. And of course, this is just but to create an enabling environment for businesses. Of course, we all know with these different initiatives or reforms, of course, the government, and more so the Kenyan government, was addressing the bureaucratic delays and, of course, the red tape. So in efforts to comply, of course, with Article 1.2, of course, KenTrade, who is the implementing agency of the Trade Information Portal in Kenya, Together with support from UNTAD, TIME, and ITC, implemented the trade information portal. And of course, as it is, prescribed on the WTO TFA, was to ensure that there's accessibility and transparency of trade-related processes for our traders. Of course, after we documented or mapped these procedures, we noticed that this was not only a portal or a platform, but this was a mirror or a tool that we can use for trade reforms. Of course, we noticed that from whatever had been documented, there was so much duplication and complexities with the procedures, which of course created an opportunity for us to dig deeper and get to see how we can ease this for the traders. Of course, with the support from our government through the National Trade Facilitation Committee, we embarked on a journey for simplification of these procedures. And of course, I remember the very first commodity was the procedure to export coffee. We all know that what a trader would want to see is where they're able to register, the prerequisite registrations when it comes to trade, then pay for the same, permit or license, and then obtain that permit for ease and accessibility of this information, and also to make it faster and cost effective when it comes to his business. So with this journey, of course, by then, the export of coffee or the procedure for export of coffee and about 88 steps, of which a step generally is what, from what was described previously, is that it is the interaction between you as a trader and a government officer or an online, platform. So tremendously, those steps reduced from 89 to 56, and with the different or requirements, which also were at 76, reducing them to 49 documents. This was not final. Of course, this was just the quick wins, considering that there's quite a number of reforms that need to be implemented in reference to either change of law or automation. So just to take a case, a case in point, traders especially who export or import fresh or dried produce are required to register with Kenya Plant Inspection. And what this does is that by the time we started this particular journey, we noted that the steps for this particular registration, just as it was showcased by Frank, it was about 10 steps. So tremendously, that step reduced to 5 steps. And this was more as, remember what Frank said, that there's the mindset. So what traders would be asked to do is to write to the managing director with subsequent number of attachments, just being attached to that cover letter as an evidence that they're indeed the bona fide exporters for that particular produce. So what we did is we consolidated all this information into a one form, a form that would encompass giving all that information in one single form, and that reduced the number of requirements considerably. I want to say that despite all this, and of course, after seeing all these changes were possible without any change of law. So the focus on simplification is in that, and especially if, because I've seen a number of countries have actually implemented trade information portals or either e-regulations, more so especially for the registration purposes. The focus is to identify on procedural or regulatory, barriers that probably would lengthen the procedure to obtain those documents. In the process, we identified a tool that we call the administrative burden cost. And what is administrative burden cost? This is any cost that is passed to the trader, but in essence, the trader or the regulator does not know whether there's any extra cost they are transferring to the trader at any given point. At this point, we take hypothetically that if I was to use my resources being an exporter to move from one office to the other, then that is costs. One, there's time element, and there's also loss of manpower. So considerably and based on hypothetical data, would actually pick and get to see how much would we be paying that person. If it is transport and considering the traffic, how much would, how long would that person take to move from one office to the other? And then collectively would actually give a substantive cost of how much that trader or that exporter would incur. This was all because this information was mapped on the trade information portals. What I want to say is that, of course, simplification of coffee did not just touch on coffee, but as I have mentioned, that any produce or any commodity that was among or was being affected by the registration process or any other within the value chain was touched in a way or not, for as long as it's regulated by that specific regulator. So for example, we went ahead and noticed that that procedure touched on tea, flowers, beans, nuts, and oils. What I would want to say is that simplifying that particular procedure for registration for KEFIs saw a reduction of about 24,910 Kenya shillings. That's about 249 USD. Of course, this translating the total reduction of the cost involved in that registration process to about 62%. Of course, as Frank said, with trade information bonus, what I said that this is a tool that you can do quite a lot for the business community and as a government. We also, or rather through the support of UNTAD, we came up with a simplification dashboard, which would support the team that was implementing these changes just to be able to evaluate and keep track of exactly what is happening at any given time, since we did not only stop at the simplification of coffee, but we moved to other commodities like the likes of flowers, meat and meat products, nuts, cotton, and the likes. So collectively and up to date, we have actually eliminated 49 steps. We have eliminated requirements. It's a total of 69 requirements have been removed or eliminated. And out of these steps, we are able to obtain 23 of these steps online, which were physical, as in previously before simplification, someone aimed to move from one office to the other. And of course, considerably, we have saved the business community about 224 USD on administrative burden costs, saving the trader about 124 working hours. This would translate to the total number of time from the registration to obtaining that particular to about 2 weeks, which that is a considerable change. And of course, essentially, you note that the time and cost for the trader have also gone down. Further to this, we've been able to still, through UNTAD, identify, because when we started, it was a bit tedious for us to do the implementation in terms of tracking, in terms of monitoring where we are. So through the simplification dashboard, we are able to track that. And additionally, we have a reform tracker. I think for those who managed to join, I think there was a webinar about 2 or 3 months ago, which now helps us to log in all those implementation measures, and at a snapshot, they can give an indication of where a specific working group is in terms of implementation of those measures. So just to conclude, I would want to say that the more businesses would want to sell and source across the borders, of course, the more they're benefiting from these simplification measures, which of course they are fostering transparency and use of international standards at any given time. And of course, we have seen adoption of new technologies and trade facilitation measures, such as single windows, electronic documents acceptance, and of course, a number of processes under customs have been automated compared to a decade before. Of course, I may not say, but with the onset of COVID, notably adoption and use or of use of mobile money platforms have been on the increase. And of course, with the respective regulators who are foreseeing or who actually are regulating this produce. So in a nutshell, our next steps would want to say, would want to dig into an individualized, not really individualized, but would want to get to the customer's perspective when it comes to simplification, where would want to monitor and get to see whatever has been implemented is what is on the ground. Would want to be getting such reports from the traders, and I'm pretty sure that very soon we'll be coming on an online tool where we are able to track what exactly is on the ground at any given moment. Thank you very much. Ian, back to you.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you for all that hard data as well on the benefits from the digital government. Actually, it will be useful at some point that we can take that data and then compare it to the costs, and we can see a real cost-benefit analysis of moving to digital government, because certainly a lot of information there that we want to use. So we seem to have lost Eric, so we'll go straight to David. David's from the German Development Corporation, GIZ. David, over to you.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. I recently got trouble with these freebies. Thanks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is a pleasure joining this panel. I would love to speak to you in person in a physical meeting, but I am speaking to you today on behalf of the German Development Corporation of Virtual. It's a pleasure. I agree with a lot of the stuff my previous speakers provided, and their important remarks. And I'm specifically happy, Frank, that we partner with UNCTAD in this field. In a nutshell, it's about governance, not IT, and it's about creating impactful services to digitally transform government. It is about simplifying and remaining agile, I think, and I hope I can provide a few inspirations for you today for this discussion, really. First of all, I think we all agree governments are at the forefront of efforts to harness emerging digital technologies to build more inclusive and meaningful health and economic systems. We see this in the build out of digital ID systems like Aadhaar in India, with national payment systems like Rast in Pakistan, with data exchange systems like the adaptation of X-Road in Benin, and digital health management information systems like the rollouts of DHIS2. I think you also agree that governments must accelerate their digital transformation agendas because developing a digital economy starts with digital government, really, I think. But all governments, mine included, face common challenges. We see problems in coordination that commonly occur in aligning ICT ministry work with that of other agencies, and the coordination between ministries with different mandates. So competency and power is really a topic. We see a lot of siloed investments, duplicative efforts by development partners that reinforce fragmented digital governance and silos within governments, really. And here I can speak on behalf of the federal German government. This includes really all governments globally. We have 12,000 software applications in the public domain. I think we have only 124 car registration, so it's a big mess. Challenges in procuring and implementing affordable IT solutions persist, as also does the problem of finding necessary capital to centrally invest in ICT and ICT infrastructure projects. And major challenges exist in adapting and investing in project the scale. Scalability is a topic. And now as we reach data connectivity, and a new class of infrastructure has emerged, digital public infrastructure. This DPI, if you want to put it like this, consists of digital systems that build on connectivity to enable the core basic functions that are essential: collaboration, to commerce, to governance. It includes ID, payments, data exchange, which really form the digital backbone of public service delivery. But despite the growing interest of our partner countries, the cost and complexity of building digital systems has put this out of reach for many, unfortunately. And we believe there is a solution through the creation of generic, reusable, and interoperable building blocks. A holistic digital government platform that builds off good building blocks should help a country to see a wide range of benefits and lead to economic return. India's Ministry of Electronics Information Technology, MITI. I have a back noise here. Sorry, just pause for a minute. That's better. Thank you. India's MITI suggested that the potential of $1 trillion US dollars could be generated in digital governments, in a digital government scenario in India, where digital technologies are fully utilized to unlock productivity, savings, efficiencies through a cross-sector collaborative approach. And I mean, we see it since its introduction, Aadhaar has stimulated the growth of India's digital economy and enabling digital payments of 57 billion US dollars and saving the government up to 13 billion US dollars in reduced transaction overheads. Also, Bana, as a popular example mentioned before, that last year launched their national e-services portal that serves as a single point of entry to all government public services, is increasing its accountability and accessibility, and therefore a very promising example. Still, we observe in many countries and sectors that the basic concepts of reusability, security by design, and interoperability are not yet fully adopted and applied in digital investments. And at this time, it is important for government it is important for the government technology stack to be healthy in a way that where bad legacy would not impede progress and does not set up barriers. And governments that have not yet digitized the majority of their services have the ultimate freedom to make decisions based on the state of technology as it is today. So with the building block concept, building on the building block concept, this is why we co-founded the GovStick initiative together with Estonia, ITU, and DIAL last year. And the GovStick initiative is a joint cooperation to bring this building block approach to reality. Surely it follows a human-centric approach that puts people at the heart of digital transformation and ensures the protection of human rights. But also it is a consortium that is now live with more than 60 partners from the open source community, from the private sector like SAP, GSMA, and many engaged lead countries like Estonia, Singapore, India, for instance. The GovStick initiative will provide examples of components that could and probably should be built once, but made available and used by everyone. And one objective is to avoid, therefore, duplication and maximize return on investments, and to enable interoperability. Our focus here is to also enable the countries to kickstart their digital transformation journey by adopting, deploying, and scaling services. Through the building block approach, governments can easily create, modify their digital platforms. They become agile. Services and applications can also be built by simplifying costs, time, and resource requirements. And what we're doing is it starts with the design specifications, really the minimum viable specifications based on best practices of the foundational core building blocks like security, ID, payments, information exchange, registration. And when we move forward with the collaboration, we will create a model digital government platform that will demonstrate the elements of reuse across services and sectors. The specifications, the government platform model, and all the procurement documents will be available as a digital public good for the use of the global community, with a focus on procurement and the implementation in a low resource setting. And yeah, I'm convinced, we're convinced that this will help to increase speed of delivery by enabling the reuse of resources and redirecting resources towards the improvement of service delivery outcomes. This can potentially lead to cost efficiency and provide common capabilities across departments and agencies, which again will avoid application of efforts, reduce costs of development for new solutions, and it will enable interoperability to integrate and exchange information easily with other platforms and systems through open standards and APIs. Finally, it will enable development of services that can connect and link with different parts of the government, providing a connected, consistent and seamless user experiences, or one government, whole of government approach. Our commissioning party, the Ministry for Economic Cooperation Development, BMZ, is significantly invested in GovStack and co-founded by the European Commission. GovStack will now be implemented in Kenya, Rwanda, Egypt, and Ukraine, as well as at the Horn of Africa initiatives countries. We're looking at a flagship of the German Development Corporation that will be part of our global program in the next 3 years. And we are actively looking for partners to strengthen our global community for tech experts, for policymakers, change makers, really like-minded human beings. So please join the community if you're interested. I'm happy to get in touch and see how we can cooperate in this field. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you for that call to action. So as David mentioned, the strategy of creating a digital public good out of digital government platforms, creating these building blocks, and then starting out, I think we said Kenya, Rwanda, Uruguay, and the Horn of Africa. So that's great. There were a lot of information, useful information there. Next, Eric is back with us. So Eric is number 2 at the APIEX, which is the Investment and Export Agency, Promotion Agency in Benin. And Eric, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, thank you very much. I will try to speak English. Even my English is not very good since I'm a French speaker, but I will try to make myself understanding in English. So excuse me first if my English is not good. Okay. So APIEX, let me present in a few words APIEX. APIEX is like a one-stop shop agency that the government put in place in 2018 to coordinate all investment need and all investor needs to avoid investor to go to let's say a multiple administration. So when you come in Benin, the one point you come to is APIEX. We are in charge of promoting investment, promoting exportation, coordination of doing business. So all the reform we done in Benin to facilitate business environment have been coordinated by APIEX. We are also in charge of we have the administrative authority of special economic zone. We have a secretary of PPP in Benin, and again, we promote exportation. So Benin has been deploying since 4 years now with the new government, a global strategy, a global digitizing strategy. This has started by creating some digital agency. So we have three digital agency. One is for infrastructure, the other one is for security, and the third one is for software. So so when we did that, we take a law that we name a code of numeric, that means digitalizing codes that organize our strategy. And we set up a roadmap for the whole country, and the roadmap following doing business indicator like starting business, getting electricity across trade across border, etc. And then we focus on how to simplify each process. So then we simplify the process first, and then we implement the process with digitizing the process. So this is a global strategy that the government had put in place. Now coming to starting business. Again, when we set up APX, APX was we get so all the procedure, and then we put all administration together, all administration involved in starting business. We put them together in APX here. We set up a one-stop shop. We simplify the process, and then we digitizing the process. And by doing this, we gain time, we reduce the cost, and we avoid to people to go to different administration to set up the business. By today, I don't know if I can share my screen so that I can show you quickly the platform we use to set up the business, and also the statistic, today's statistic I will show you, and also all the documents you get when you set up the business. Any document in Benin, any document when you set up a business, any document is sent by email in a numeric format with a QR code, where you can flash the QR code and get the original document. So when we do that, we understand clearly that people may not have some material to set up the business from their home. So first, we set up let's say a creation point in APX. We set up three material. Okay, let's say a laptop, a printing, and we train some people to help. We train our staff. We train our staff to help people when they come to APX, and we give 6 months to anybody to be assisted. Okay, so we have 6 months, let's say intermediary period, where we set up a desk where we help people when people come and say, okay, this is a new process. I don't know how to use internet. I don't know how to use material. Please help me. So we set up a help desk which help people for 6 months. But you know what happened? We launched the platform in February 2020, and in March 2020, COVID come. When COVID come, and we close the door, and we say, okay, the government say, close every office. You cannot get people physically again. People are now mandatory to use the platform. Though the COVID helped us to accelerate our planning. So in 1 or 2 months, people are forced to use the platform, and then it helps us to have a huge, let's say, a large utilization of the platform. And then, because first we plan 6 months to 1 year to help people, and in 2 months, people has begun using the platform because of COVID. So COVID helped us because we're not able to get people physically. So the platform that we have launched one month before become the only way to set up business. The only way to set up business. That accelerates the way our planning. And today, this is the only way people use to set up the business. And in Benin today, when you set up a business, you get all your documentation within, let's say, 3 years, 3 hours. When you start in 9 a.m., at 12 a.m., you get all your documentation when everything is ready, when everything is complete and valid. I don't know if I can share my screen. Yes, I can share. Yes, écran complet. So are you seeing my screen now? Yes?
Yeah. So, but we're seeing the Zoom.
The Zoom, okay. So here is the platform. Are you seeing?
Yes, thanks, Osank.
Okay, so first you start by checking your company name to avoid that, because the platform allow you if the name you are going to use is already used, and then you check your company name. If the company name is not used, and then you continue, you set up your company name, you complete all documentation, and within 3 hours, and like you can see here is the statistic. The statistic is public. When you get to the site, you have a statistic here. This one is public announcement. So when your company is set up, you can see here. This menu is to verify the company name. And as you can see is today's statistic. As you can see, to create the company, you spend 3 hours and let's say 56 minutes, almost 4 hours to set up a company from the beginning to the end. And then when we're done, what you receive is this. You receive all of this. You receive all of this in a numeric form. You know, this is something this is a company set up today. As you can see, the date yesterday. So you receive all of this in your email for each administration involved in the process. And here, as you can see, you have a QR code, and that due to that QR code, you can scan the QR code. So each administration, each public officer can scan the QR code and get to the original document. That means you are not mandatory to have the paper form with you. So we have made a communication in the whole country so that each administration can recognize any document coming from APX. So you have all of documents, your professional business card, here it is with also a QR code, your attestation from fiscal administration, this is from fiscal administration. You also have a QR code. This is your public announcement. Also, you have a QR code. This is from the commercial courts. Let's say Registre de Commerce. Also, that have also a QR code that allow you again to get to the original document. So any document we provide to investor has a single QR code where people can get to the document. Again, to set up a business today in Benin, you have at least, let's say, around 3 hours or 4 hours. And as I start saying, this is a global strategy coming from the government, and I'm going to show you a platform that we have been put in place to summarize all the digital platform we have been put in place. And as you can see, each of doing business indicator like creation company, trade across border, getting credit, execution a contract, each of those indicators have a unique platform, and when you click here, you get to the platform, and so that you can access globally to the government. Again, we also set up a public service website that we have been digitalizing all our citizen public documentation. As you can see here, we have around 300 process that we have been digitalizing so that people can, from the world, get any document they want to get. Just to fill a form, and then you get your documentation. When you get an ID, you fill a platform. Visa, you fill a platform. Construction of permit, you fill a platform. So any of our process in Benin has been digitizing so that people can make business more easier, more fast, and with reduced cost. I was told that I have 6 minutes. I think I reached the 6 minutes. I don't know if I can continue or if it's okay for you, but I'm available to answer any questions you have. I guess that my English was understanding for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Merci, Eric. And if you could just turn off the share screen. Merci pour cette présentation, which was really useful. And just mention, I think some of that was done with the Untied Online single window platform that Frank presented earlier. So thank you very much, and congratulations on all the work Benin is doing in all these different areas.
You're welcome.
So, Jonathan Portmans, who is from Gen Global, so the Global Entrepreneurship Network, and he'll be telling us about their perspective on this important developments. Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you, Ian, and of course, thank you, Frank, our extraordinary team partners in this work, and it's really tremendous work you're all doing. I wanted to just make brief comments from the perspective of the user and the entrepreneur. So as a little bit of background, I, unlike many of you who've been speaking previously, am not one of the implementers of the platform on the ground, but we've been looking at this from the perspective of the entrepreneur. I myself am at 2 startups and 2 exits, but I'm also an economist, and so I spend a lot of my time in the work of Jen is spent around building the right ecosystems and enabling environments, but also inspiring the entrepreneurs that we need to kick the tires, to join this effort of experimenting with others in teams about figuring out better ways of doing things, essentially starting up new ventures. And you all know that the value of that is not just for job creation and economic growth. It is very much about helping us to innovate from the pandemic, innovate around big challenges like the development goals, or indeed around things like, of course, climate change. As we look at all of these works of entrepreneurs, though, there are still a lot of barriers that they face. And naturally, what we're talking about today is perhaps one of the biggest barriers. Naturally, our economies suffer if we leave anyone out. Jane, I want to point out that, yes, there should be more women on this panel. We're so excited to see you. I will actually just say I just got out of another meeting in Palestine where I was told that now 2/3 of the coders and developers in that country are women. So we're making progress on digitalization in terms of diversity. But I want to bring out this point because I think one of the things that we need to remember is that we've got to make this process simple, as Frank says, not just from the government's perspective, and I'll come to that in a moment, but we've got to make it so simple for the user, because if we're truly trying to reach groups in our society that have been historically underrepresented in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, we need to make this a non-existent barrier, a non-existent reason why someone in one part of society or one demographic in our communities can participate in the extraordinary and exciting world of trying to create new value through new firm formation. We need to make this a level playing field for all citizens. And of course, the World Bank figured this out many years ago when they said, let's put out the doing business study. Let's actually, as many rankings do now, and as we're, today you've heard from some of the speakers who are very proud of the ability to compete in terms of the number of minutes or hours it takes to go through these administrative processes. But I want us to look at this from a super important perspective of inclusion. This is part of the public good, because what we're really doing is making it easier for anyone in our societies to be able to do this. I want to be able to also draw lessons from our work. Jen's engagement of this is being funded by the US Department of State. And we are very proud to try to work in other ways to be able to increase the adoption of governments of these kinds of digital technologies. And let me come at it from the non-entrepreneur angle, if I can, just for a moment. One of the things I observed in the project that we did in Iraq that Frank referenced was the great work of the UNCTAD team, but also the great work of the team on the ground, is the sheer complexity of what it means in every country on the planet to get agencies to work together. This was mentioned previously earlier about this alignment of agencies. I'll just speak for the country that I live in, even though I have a global job. We actually we operate our program, Jen, in 200 countries. But here in the United States, it's the same problem. Agencies are competing for the turf of the entrepreneur, of the business, of the being able to succeed in this area. And so we've seen in instances, and in fact, some of the efforts to get a digital government platform project off the ground have failed because there's been competition among the agencies. But one of the beauties of this is that it allows everybody in the government to look and see how maybe their pieces are causing delays, maybe they're making it overly complex, etc. As Frank mentioned in his opening remarks, simplification is what this is about, but it's also about essentially transparency and knowledge creation among the actual government leaders themselves. I don't think there's a single instance here where any government leader who is involved in helping to either fund or implement this digital platform, whether it be the single window or e-registration or e-regulation, was aware of the miserable experience that their citizens were having to go through. They may have been aware of it from someone in their own agency, but they weren't aware of it looking at it from the government-wide perspective. So I think we need to make sure that what we're looking at here is that we're opening doors to more of our citizens. And by the way, many of those citizens, it's not just about the reputation as public officials that one would have with one's constituents, but it's also about reaching people who otherwise don't trust government and who might trust them more if this is a simple and transparent process. So I certainly think that we need to look at this from that angle, that at the end of the day, the world needs more entrepreneurs. This is going to accelerate that process, but it's also going to accelerate the ability of the agencies to collaborate more closely together for the purposes not just of the digital platform, but we hope that and can see already that it's an opportunity to have a common language among the government agencies that touch on the importance of entrepreneurs and startups and small businesses. And so I hope that we can see that there's a long list of reasons to do this. I haven't come up with any reason why our government should not be doing this. Thanks to the great leadership of UNCTAD, it's been able to be made happen in a very affordable way. There is a wonderful thing happening here in this World Investment Forum meeting, which is that you are seeing a borderless discussion occur, where people are sharing how they're commonly addressing common problems. And it always amazes me, this pandemic we've been through, that it was tailor-made for a global response, but we never ever had one. In fact, in most countries, we had hundreds and hundreds of little local responses. But this was something that impacted every human being on the planet. So it's great to see that as we look at some of the ramifications, and wonderful to hear the story from Benin, that really, in a way, you found some silver lining in the pandemic, that it kind of forced many people to do things online and otherwise it might have taken longer to convince them, the user, to see that increase in users. But we hope that as a result of this, we'll see more and more governments being able to accelerate the implementation of technology and all of the benefits that's going to bring, whether it being cost saving, increased engagement and willingness of people to actually formally start the business rather than informally, whether it be having access to more digital analytics or whether it be simply reducing costs and improving the lives of citizens in their interface with their government. So speaking on behalf of the entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurial ecosystems and the communities on the ground that, frankly, usually just find government to be an annoyance. I cannot tell you how important the work is that everybody on this call is doing, and many, many others that are part of this kind of global entrepreneurship registration community, where we're looking to digitize this process. I recognize digital government goes beyond entrepreneurship and small businesses and regulation, and that's tremendous. I can only comment on that aspect of it, but it's having a truly important impact. I think it could be one of the biggest things that you could do in order to increase rates of new firm formation. And by the way, it doesn't matter. We focus at Gen on companies that are 5 years or younger. And the most important thing is all the net new jobs come from these firms less than 5 years old. It doesn't matter, by the way, if many of them fail on that process. It's this turnover, it's this factor of people are trying and starting. And while they're doing it, this is where the economic value is coming from. And removing this among other barriers to people trying that out is ever so important. Two last things for me to wrap up. Just to say, we are on the eve of Global Entrepreneurship Week, and so this is an incredibly important topic that will be happening throughout Global Entrepreneurship Week. If you're not familiar with what that is, there are 200 countries participating this year. It's about inspiring more of their citizens to consider the path of entrepreneurship, and the work that everybody's doing in digital government is just one less barrier to get people to take that risk and give it a try. It's all about getting the people who are already involved as entrepreneurs or as ecosystem leaders to convince more people in their country to take a risk, to dream, and figure out for themselves something new that they could be doing. And secondly, I want to extend an invitation to everybody on this call. If you are interested in digital government, as I think was mentioned by one of the speakers before me, I think we're all looking forward to more live interface. I'm very proud to say that Jen will be hosting once again live the Global Entrepreneurship Congress, which is about 8,000 people from around the world. We'll have nearly 200 countries participating. It's going to be the last week of March. This year, we're actually going to hold it in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, but it's going to have a whole session focused on this concept of digital government and how different countries are approaching this path. And we hope we'll be able to showcase some of the stories that you've heard today, but we will also be doing this in the presence and in parallel to a ministerial, where we expect government participation from over 100 countries. It's called the Startup Nations Ministerial. It's a ministerial specifically dedicated to startup policy and ministers and governments for which that is part of their jurisdiction. This will be an important part of that agenda to say this is a critical step. If you're doing a policy audit of what are the things we're doing to remove barriers to our entrepreneurs, this is one of those things. So if you're interested in that, I asked Frank and Ian before this if I could make a plug for that. There's no cost to come, but it's gec.co if you're interested in being a part of that, because we will be having a focus on this very topic. So congratulations again to everybody in these great examples. I think we are doing incredibly important work. And I just say that on behalf of the entrepreneurs. Thank you on behalf of the entrepreneurs for making it easier for us to have a symbiotic relationship with our governments rather than a contentious, frustrating one. And again, congratulations to UNCTAD for convening this. Thanks for letting me join today.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, and some very useful information there, including the GEC next March in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So we'll turn straight over to Alex, since we have to end in 15 minutes, actually. Time has been going so fast today. Alex, you have the floor. I think your microphone is, you're a bit quiet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Very good. And my camera should come back someday. Anyway, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Frank. It's always a pleasure to actually be able to support UNCTAD activities. And thank you, Ian, for all the coordination and the leadership that you always show us. So to wrap up all these things and the excellent presentations that we have heard until a few seconds ago, I wanted to tell you about some tools and opportunities that UNIT are. And then also, Ian was very gracious to invite me to give some comments on something that I used to do in my previous life. I was a government official from Ecuador. I come from Latin America. And one of my posts before leaving the government was the National Director for Investment Promotion. So I've been working with UNCTAD more than 20 years, and this is really familiar to me, and it's very important that we can put it within a context at the same time that we talk about digital government, right? So if I may share some screen, my screen, Ian, I will appreciate that. Just tell me if you see it. 1 second. That's the...
Yes, we see it, yeah.
Yes. I simply wanted to invite everyone to go to unitar.org. There are very many opportunities. There are 620 different courses. Last year, we had 320,000, more than 320,000 beneficiaries. And of course, you can find, the depth of things that we do. Here you have the different divisions of UNITAR, and I'm very privileged to lead the division of people under my executive director, my director general, Nikhil Seth. And very important here it is. I invite you to give us some couple of minutes on the online learning solutions and in all the other things that we can do, and especially to the right of the screen on the online platforms. There are several things on digital government, even though we are just about to start a new project with UNCTAD. They are the experts, but we have done something in the past, a few years back, and most importantly on investment promotion and arbitration and so on. You can find things here. But in addition to this, I wanted to also tell you that there are several other things that we can perhaps talk about, and I go straight to what the government of Ecuador, that I don't represent anymore. I am a career civil servant at UNITAR. But in talking about digital government, and especially how digital government can deliver in terms of development, here you have an example. And UNCTAD has been, by the way, working with the Ecuadorian government for a long time, I think close to 3 decades now. Part of what you see here, of course, happened product of that relationship. Today, in my country, when you go, everything is electronic. We had an actual law 12 or 13 years ago called in Spanish, cero papeles, zero paper, right? So everything gradually was moved into a digital platform. And here what you read in Spanish is a digital window for government tasks or requests, right? And then if you go down, you have to register, of course, and get your username and password. Everything is free. But here, basically, you go to Trámites en Línea, which is the next thing that I want to show you. Trámites en Línea here, and I want to read this thing because this is important to analyze when we talk about digital government. The first paragraph in Spanish there, under the banner, says, digital government or doing government applications, if we call it online, are faster, 74% on average, cheaper. They cost between 1.5% and 5% of what it would cost the person to actually come in person, and less subject to corruption. The last part is even more important, and is not this is not coming from the government, from UNITAR. This is from Latino Barometro, an organization very highly respected in Latin America, right? So you can do very many things here. And, all these organizations that you see to the left of the screen were, if I may use this word with respect to my former colleagues, were forced to move everything online. And there are some things, especially in the judicial sector, that you still have to do in paper and in person, but the vast majority are there, right? And here, just to continue, these are all the organizations, all of them. If you began with 2, imagine. So digital government today, it's basically the day-to-day. Look at all the portfolio of organizations that you can see in an alphabetical order. And I wanted to mention in finishing, this is just this year, from January till now, right? 6,600 trámites completed, 46 million visits, 1,514 regulations distributed or published there, 363 institutions working. All of them, of course, under this one shop window. And you can even chat. If you see at the bottom, you can even chat with someone on time, right, in real time. But I needed to also mention something. And I wanted to link these two investments. Ecuador is dollarized. It's dollarized since the year 2000. So it's more than 2 decades in which Ecuador lost its ability to actually, print their own money. And Ecuador is dollarized. And I also asked Ian if I can share the screen here. If I may, let me show you. Right there. You see that from the 70s, right, until now, Ecuador has been very erratic in terms of its ability to attract foreign direct investment. In the 70s was very unique because there was a humongous investment on the oil industry. That was decreasing. Ecuador went back to democracy in 1979. So from the 80s till now, 4 decades, basically you have seen that the country has thrived until a big crisis in 1998, then tried to recover again in terms of investment, and then a little erratic, as I say, until now. This is in terms of GDP. But I wanted to link, if I may stop sharing now, I wanted to link what we can do in terms of digital government to bring about development, but also investment, because the one thing that Ecuador has just embarked in doing, at least as a mega plan, is to now digitalize investment promotion. So all what I heard today, my respect to all of the speakers, you have given very relevant examples of information that I think will serve not only the Ecuadorians, but very many other countries. But I wanted to finish by establishing this link between digital government and investment, because I believe there is a high correlation. It generates a trust and confidence. An investor wants to know, as you saw very many examples before, and especially the platform that Frank showed us at the beginning, an investor not only wants simplification of all the tasks that he will need to embark on if they are going to establish a company, for instance, or register an investment, they also want transparency and trust. And digital government brings that, and it will have a positive investment, a positive result in terms of foreign direct investment. So I know this is the World Investment Forum. That's why I wanted to put digital government in light of FDI. But with that, and again, inviting you all to visit unitar.org, I finish here. Frank, thank you again, and Ian, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex, for that very quick but very useful presentation. It's great to see as well what's going on in Ecuador. And also we'll be hearing much more about UNITAR with the upcoming UNITAR Digital Government Program. And I think there's a lot we can do there, particularly what we've heard today. So thank you, Alex, again. So we've got 5 minutes left, and we have been getting questions through the 2 platforms. On the Zoom, we got a question from Mr. Julian Borden. How did you overcome resistance from intermediaries such as middlemen or lawyers? So Jane has answered, coordination of the simplification work was spearheaded by the National Trade Facilitation Council, who ensured all relevant stakeholders are involved in an exercise. I'm reading this out because colleagues on different platforms can't always see the answers and questions. And that, I think, is a very important issue about how do you overcome that kind of resistance. Nelson from El Salvador asked, what are the main challenges in the implementation of a simplification program? And Jane has quickly replied, resistance of change from regulators, costs related to automation of identified measures, change of already existing laws and regulations. So that's good to know. And we have an anonymous attendee who said, how much is GIZ and other development partners putting towards digitalization? David has answered the total portfolio for the German Development Corporation amounts to 1.2 billion euros. With 10 digitally transformative flagship projects, total of 145 million in the areas of data for policy, data economy, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, e-learning, and GovStack. We also got some questions on the other side, on the platform, on the World Investment Forum platform, where I have someone who said in India, in Andhra Pradesh, the digital government platform is well established for online know your customer authentication and all the social benefits administered. I suggest some case studies to be done on the digital administration of social development benefits. So thank you for posting that. I think that's very interesting to show that in India, We don't have panelists from India today, but they have been doing leaps and bounds in terms of online government. There was an article in The Economist last week actually about that. So we'll be looking at that, particularly on the social security, which is one of the biggest, financially one of the biggest parts and roles of government. So we have 5 minutes left. I don't know if anyone wanted to comment on any of the questions that were raised or add any additional comments to what was already answered. No?
I'll add one quick comment, Ian, just to say, I think that question about how do you overcome resistance is so important because, you know, I mean, UNCTAD has shown that this can be done in a very cost-effective way. You know, a fraction of the cost that, as Frank once told me, the French government spent on a similar thing. You know, I mean, but I think the resistance here is that people want credit for it. They want to be involved in it. So the idea of socializing it ahead of time. So I think Jane's response was excellent to that. I think, you know, trying to make sure that you've got all the actors feeling that they were consulted and they're involved. But at the end of the day, you need a strong leader. You need someone that turns around. I love the comment we had at the end where, you know, the statement was everybody got forced into doing it. Sometimes that's just what it takes. Just like the pandemic forced my mother at 88 to start doing her medical appointments online. It's the same thing. Sometimes you just have to force people into it politically. But I think that's a really important question.
Can I add something here?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, based on the experience that I mentioned before, we normally tend to see, especially we as the United Nations, that in helping a particular government embark on the long journey towards ideal e-government, there are some challenges that are not so easy to foresee. And I'll mention just one. You normally end up working with the executive branch, of course, and with the specialized agencies or under the ministries that are obvious, right? But the executive branch is also, I mean, the legislative branch is also important. It's not only the executive branch. Parliaments and entities, you know, that are part of a parliament will have to change sometimes some laws and regulations. So I just simply wanted to mention to everyone that I did see that. It was a big challenge at the beginning until Congress came on board, and Congress became one of the biggest champions because the main result, at least in the case that I mentioned before, was a reduction in corruption. I will say, without naming any country, and of course we remain neutral and we think before we speak at the UN, but in certain Latin American countries, there was, whenever you needed something from the government, was this a passport or an ID or an appointment, you needed to pay. And there were these people that had a career, made a living of just being the intermediary. That ended. So the Congress saw the advantage of doing that, and they became a humongous champion. So it's not only the executive branch. Back to you, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and that's a useful point because that's always one of the points that's raised when we talk about digital government. People say, but what about those who are going to block it? Frank, do you have some last words before we close? We have 1 minute left. Anything on behalf of UNCTAD? Your microphone is muted, Frank.
Heard today a lot of wonderful experience, no? And this UNCTAD has gathered a lot of experience in many countries in the past 20 years in implementing with countries digital tools. We've seen here the example of Kenya, the example of Benin, the example of Bhutan, and many other countries, Iraq, which was mentioned by Jonathan. And I think it is our intention to gather all this experience and to join our forces with UNITAR to create a course, a government digital center where all this experience is going to be shared with all the countries which want to overcome the barriers we mentioned earlier on. No? And we'll make available the tools which UNCTAD has developed and which we mentioned already. We're cooperating with GovStack in improving those tools, in disseminating those tools wider. And of course, with the help of UNITAR, the help of GovStack, the help of the Global Information Network, I think this center can become a very important source of knowledge for countries to accelerate the pace towards digital government.
Thank you very much, Frank. And that's all we have time for. We have to hand back to the conference. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. I think we got a lot of useful experience. We were able to share the experience at the national level, at the international level. I think this is all part of building a global alliance in an area which hasn't really been looked at before. So we're going to be seeing a lot more from the UN and other partners on this. There's a lot of data to get together as well and do analysis on, and I think get some very interesting stories out of that. And also some useful lessons on how to expand it at the national level and at the international level. So thank you very much. Thank you, Tamden. Thank you, James. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Frank. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.